Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. I hope you all are well. It is Wednesday. I hope you all have had a good day and a good week so far. Midway through the week now. What is it called? Hump Day is it typically known, which means we are at the end of the middle of the week and towards the weekend, which is good news, isn't it? Everton are of course back in action this weekend against Brentford in the FA Cup. We will be live with the game preview to that game on Friday evening, so don't forget to join us live for that one. We're going to sit down, we're going to talk about the game, Frank Lampard's first game in charge of Everton, of course. You know, obviously we know Dele Alli and Donny van der Beek, as well as Anwar El Ghazi, 3 of Everton's 5 January signings, won't feature in that game because they're all cup-tied, unfortunately, but it'll be a great opportunity for Frank Lampard to introduce himself to the Evertonians at Goodison Park, and I actually am really looking forward to this one. I think the atmosphere will be up, you know, I think the overall feeling around the football club, the overall feeling around the ground as you know, improved dramatically since, you know, 2 weeks ago when Rafa Benitez was in charge. And although there will still be, you know, a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervousness about, you know, the situation that we're in at the moment in the league and the fact that we've got so many must-win games coming up, I do think that the, you know, the enjoyment and I suppose the optimism of this being a new start and a new beginning under Frank Lampard will show on Saturday afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to that one. As I said, we will be live with the game preview to that game on Friday evening, so don't forget to join us live for that one to get involved. But today we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about the January transfer window as a whole. We sat down yesterday and we spoke about deadline day. Obviously, deadline day was on Monday, one of the most dramatic deadline days I can remember as an Evertonian for a long time. Certainly one of the most dramatic January deadline days I can remember as a Blue. You know, for over 10 years, I suppose. I can't remember, you know, the last time. Maybe the season where we signed Nikica Jelavic on deadline day. I think we signed Stephen Pienaar back that day as well. But other than that season, we typically don't really have very active January transfer windows as a whole, really. Never mind deadline day. Obviously, we've signed a couple of players on deadline day over the years in January, Josh King being last season's signing. But, you know, there was never really the optimism, the excitement, and I suppose the madness that surrounded what Monday morning, afternoon and evening was. And we sat down and we spoke about that yesterday. We spoke about Donny van der Beek, we spoke about Dele Alli, we spoke about Frank Lampard and the impact that those 3 people can have on Everton Football Club over the coming weeks and months. We're going to sit down today and talk more about the January window as a whole. We're going to talk about the players that left Everton Football Club. Obviously, specifically Luca Dean. We didn't have many outs this window. There was a rumour on Monday that there could have potentially been a first teamer that left the football club on deadline day, but that didn't come to anything in the end. We had a couple of players go out on loan in Ellis Sims and Lewis Warrington. The only permanent transfer we had leave the club was quite a significant one, wasn't it, really, in Luca Dean, a player that at the start of the transfer window, if you'd have said to myself and I think pretty much every other Evertonian that, you know, Everton will end the January transfer window with Luca Dean leaving the football club, I think we'd have all said, don't be silly, that's never happening. He literally said 4 or 5 months ago, you know, that it's a perfect wedding being at Everton and he loves the football club. So that's certainly an interesting one to talk about. We're obviously going to talk about Vitaly Mykolenko, Nathan Patterson, and we will go into talking a little bit about Dele Alli, Donny van der Beek, but we won't touch too much on those because we did speak quite you know, a lot yesterday. I think the live stream yesterday was an hour and a half or something like that, talking specifically about, you know, Donny van der Beek, Dele Alli and Frank Lampard, of course. That was the deadline day roundup. As I said, this is more of a general sort of transfer roundup for January, and we asked the question, was it a successful window? As the title of the live stream states, was this a successful window? I want to hear your thoughts in the live comments. We'll be getting in the live comments as per usual, so get your thoughts in there. Was this a successful window in your eyes, taking into consideration the players we brought in and taking into consideration the players we allowed to leave, i.e. Luca Dean, because I know the other 2 are loan deals, and again, there's not much sort of drama based around those deals as of course. You know, but taking all of that into consideration, do you believe this has been a successful window? As well as the fact that we've got a new manager. You know, ultimately we came into this January transfer window with Rafa Benitez as the Everton manager. A lot of Evertonians on the 1st of January believed that Rafa Benitez shouldn't have been the Everton manager and should have already lost his job. And obviously we've ended the window with Frank Lampard, and as I said at the start of the season, this sort of newfound air of optimism and positivity around the football club, which is something that we've needed for a long, long time. Adam, she says, congrats, Cam, almost at 6k. Wow, that's a good reminder. We are literally 5 subs away from 6,000 subscribers. We were 2 subs earlier on in the day, and then 3 people decided that they weren't that interested in the channel for whatever reason. That's fair enough. Sometimes these things happen, but we are literally 5 subscribers away from 6,000. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. It only takes a second. It means a massive amount to me. And 6,000 is a goal that we literally said yesterday we want to hit come Saturday. So if we could hit it by tonight, that would be absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, it's not even been that long since we hit 5,000. I think we hit 5,000 in October, because it was on my birthday actually. So to hit 1,000 subscribers in little over 3 months is absolutely unbelievable. And as I said, it's all down to everybody's support and watching the live stream, subscribing, enjoying them, getting involved. So thank you all so much for that. But we are, as I said, literally within touching distance now. I can see the final, that ribbon that you run through when you're doing a marathon or whatever. I can see it now. I just need that final push. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. It only takes a second, and it would mean a massive amount to me. DGST says, I'll get the kids to subscribe now, Cam. Thank you very much, my mate. This is what we'd like to see. This is the type of commitment. Even if the kids will never watch me or think, what's this idiot talking about Everton for on my YouTube channel when I only want to watch Minecraft and I don't know, Pokemon or whatever it is. That's the type of dedication. Thank you so much, my mate. 599k now, 5.99k. I wish we were on 599. That'd be 599,000, says Philip. But yeah, if you could hit that subscribe button, it would mean a great deal to me. And if you're watching live, as per usual, get your thoughts in the comments. As I said, the question we're asking today is, was this a successful transfer window? And in fact, we're going to go ahead and start the stream with a poll straight away to sort of gauge a more, more interactive, was this a successful window? A more interactive answer, because I know some people think, well, I don't really want to write a big long comment about why I think it was or why I think it wasn't a successful transfer window. So there will be a poll in the live chat. Now, if you're watching live, 40 people are. It's simple. Was this a successful transfer window? Taking all things into consideration, Luca Dean's departure, Dele Alli's, coming into the football club, Donny van de Beek, Frank Lampard. Do you believe this was a successful window? Get your thoughts in that poll that is attached to the live comments now. But anyway, let's get into the ins first. We'll start with the ins because there's much more of them. And as I said, I know this was one of the most lively sort of January transfer windows Everton have had in a long time. And even one of the most lively transfer windows we've had in a long time, even taking summer windows into consideration. I mean, you look at the summer this season, or last year, should I say, and, we signed, Andros Townsend, who there was a lot of, I suppose, pessimism about, whether or not he'd be a success, what he could bring to Everton. We signed Demarai Gray, who I feel there was a lot of optimism about because of his situation, his age, the fact that we knew that if he got his head down and he worked hard, he's got that talent to impress. He brought in a couple of goalkeepers, Andy Lonergan, Asmir Begovic, not too much to be discussed with those players either. And as I said, there wasn't an awful lot of action in that window, and granted, we were heavily hamstrung by financial fair play, and there was not a lot of money for Rafa Benitez to spend in that window, which obviously led to, not many transfers being made, and the transfers that were made being low risk financial, deals, who, ironically, a couple of them have ended up being low risk, high reward, haven't they? In the sense of Demarai Gray, Andros Townsend, and some would even argue Asmir Begovic, who cost not a penny and made an absolutely crucial save in our last FA Cup tie against Hull. So, it wasn't a particularly lively transfer window, and I think that led us all to believe that going into this one in January, it'd be very much of the same. Now, okay, we got rid of Moise Keane in the summer, we got rid of James Rodriguez, we got rid of a couple of players that were high earners on high wages, and obviously we're taking up a large sort of section of that financial fair play money pot that we weren't able to use on transfers. So we knew that there was going to be a bit more money available to us in January, but we didn't think that we'd be spending, £30 million on 2 fullbacks, and then a further potential £10 million on Dele Alli. Obviously, that money won't go in until next season, so he's actually on a free now. But I don't think any of us in the summer would have imagined, this January window to go the way it has. None more the reason than for the fact that we've got a new manager, and that is obviously Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard was announced on deadline day. I can't remember the last manager to be announced on deadline day. Let me know in the comments, not just Everton manager, but managers in general. Who was the last Premier League manager? obviously previous to Frank Lampard, that was announced as new manager of their club on deadline day. I think it was a little bit of a, a little bit different. Obviously, we knew that Frank Lampard was going to be the Everton manager. That was sort of pretty much, thrown out there by the media on the Friday. So the fact that the club waited till Monday to announce it was a little bit frustrating. But Frank Lampard was officially announced at around about 1:30 on deadline day. And we'll have a little chat about him. As I said, I'm not going to go too into Frank Lampard. If you want to hear me real thoughts on the situation and Frank's, appointment, then obviously we spoke largely about that yesterday in yesterday's team. And we also done a little video when the announcement was made talking about the, the appointments. But as I said, I think one sort of big thing that is absolutely blaringly obvious about the Lampard appointment and what it brings is a new sort of air of optimism and positivity within the fan base. Now, I know a lot of Evertonians will still be out there and a lot of people might put it in the comments, and I'm still quite similar to this as well, is to state that, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This could be, not a great appointment and we're still ultimately in a relegation battle. We haven't, let's get 2 or 3 wins under our belt and then we can start talking about, optimism and things like that. But just from the off, from Sunday afternoon, or let's say Thursday afternoon, when we didn't quite know it was going to be Frank Lampard and we knew that there was interviews taking place in London, the anxiety, the nervousness, and the as I said, the frustration, the worry, from the Everton fan base. And as I said, I can only gauge this from, the comments in our videos, the live comments on our live streams and social media in general, which isn't by any stretch of the imagination every single Evertonian, I understand that, but gauging from social media and the comments on these videos and streams, Thursday, evening, afternoon, when it wasn't quite sure he was going to be the new Everton manager, as I said, a lot of anxiety, a lot of upset, a lot of worry, a lot of nervousness. And then when it became quite apparent on Friday evening and then Saturday and Sunday that it was going to be Frank Lampard and we knew that it was a formality and it was only a case of getting, contracts sorted out and paperwork signed, then all of a sudden became, it was like a sort of a light at the end of the tunnel almost, which is a bit strange to say considering Lampard has only just come into the football club. We've not played a game under him. His first game will be on Saturday. We obviously have got a crucial couple of Premier League games coming up against Newcastle and Leeds, and those 2 are the games, as I said yesterday, that Frank Lampard really, really needs to win. The Brentford game is massively important because it's a cup game for a start and we need to be prioritising cup competitions, but also it's a good opportunity for Frank Lampard to gain a little bit of confidence in this side, gain a little bit of momentum in this side, and take a winning Everton team into 2 of the most, if not the 2 most important games of the season. We don't want to be going into Newcastle away off the back of a defeat to Brentford in the FA Cup. We want to be going into Newcastle away thinking we were absolutely boss last week against Brentford. Let's go and implement that here as well. So, again, even though we haven't played a game under the new manager and even though there's still a little bit of nervousness and anxiety about those upcoming games, there is an overall more of a positive feeling just because of the appointment, because of who Frank Lampard is, because of the fact that the majority of the fan base wanted Frank Lampard as the manager, whatever the reasons were behind that, whether that was because they genuinely believed he was the right man to take us forward or he was the better option out of the options we were given, that doesn't really matter. The overall outcome was a large, I think, percentage of Evertonians, again, as I said, that I was seeing on social media and in these streams and in these comments, wanted Frank Lampard. And again, I'll reiterate, that doesn't mean that it was every Evertonian. That doesn't mean that social media speaks for a lot of Blues, because there'll be a lot of Blues that aren't on social media, and maybe there'll be a lot of Blues that didn't want Frank Lampard. But as I said, from what I gauged, for whatever reason, a lot of Evertonians were in the Frank Lampard bus, on the Frank Lampard bus, on the train of give it to Frank Lampard and then let's see what happens. And because of that, and because eventually it was given to Frank Lampard, that positivity then started to grow. And, now there seems to be more unity at the football club, even from the interviews that we've seen from Frank Lampard, even from the, the little interviews that we've seen from Dele Alli and Donny van der Beek, the general positive sort of outcome of those are having an impact on the fans. You're seeing fans on social media now genuinely excited about Saturday's game, whereas a week ago, before Frank Lampard was announced and before we knew it was going to be Frank Lampard, and whilst we still had no manager, and even 2-3 weeks ago when Rafa Benitez was in charge, we'd have never been looking forward to this game. We'd have been looking at the next 2 games, Premier League games, thinking, this could end our season. Whereas now I think there's a lot more go out, get the wins, get what we need, get to safety, and then look at how exciting the future could be under this new young manager who likes playing attacking football. Again, as we mentioned yesterday, the training video with Frank Lampard saying, enjoy the ball. Now, some people might say, oh, that's just he's only said that because the cameras are being turned on, and why should we take anything from him saying enjoy the ball? Well, there's a good reason why we should take a lot from him saying enjoy the ball, and it's because we've watched these Everton players over the last however many weeks and months not enjoy the ball. As I said yesterday, act like the ball is a hot fucking potato, not want it anywhere near them. Every time it comes near them, I'm going to kick it out. I don't want this. I don't want this ball. I want to kick it out. I want to get rid of it. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want the accountability for if I make a mistake on this ball, then I could be responsible for conceding a goal. So if it comes anywhere near me, I'm just getting rid of it. No matter where it goes or if there's a pass on, I'm just getting rid of it. So to have a manager who will come in and say, enjoy the ball and those little subliminal messages to players that I think players will start to pick up on and think, actually, do you know what? I can pick my head up. I can use my feet. I can use my ability to not be nervous when the ball's near me. I can take responsibility. I can take accountability. I can make better decisions on the football pitch. That all helps. And having Frank Lampard in here, being able to do that and bring that, helps as well. Obviously, he's a young manager, so he's recently played the game. So he knows this new modern sense of football. It's not like our previous two managers that you could have said, well, hang on, when they were a big success in football, it was 10, 15 years ago. Football's changed an awful lot since then. Frank Lampard has not only played the modern day football, but also has managed within the modern day football, so understands what is needed. The different demands and the different styles and tactics that you have to implement to be a success in this modern day. And again, I know some people will say, well, Lampard wasn't a success, but in reality, at Derby, he'd done well. Yes, he spent a lot of money, and some would say he failed because he didn't get promoted, but he'd done well. And in the first season at Chelsea, yes, they have got an unbelievable amount of talent. Yes, their academy is filled with a ridiculous amount of players with unbelievable quality, but he's still done very, very well to get that Chelsea side to fourth. He really, really did. Against all odds, he went into Chelsea when they just sold their best player in Eden Hazard, when the club was very, very toxic. Maybe not as toxic as what Everton is now, but he went in there when there was a lot of uncertainty around Chelsea and where they were going to be. As I said, they just sold their best player, and he settled everything down. He rebuilt that relationship between players and fans, and I think that is one of the key reasons as to why a lot of fans were frustrated to see him sacked. Now, ultimately, you'd say that was a good decision because they went on to win the Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, and that's right, but the behind the scenes work that Frank Lampard put in and the work to rebuild those relationships is really appreciated by Chelsea fans. And if you go and listen to Chelsea Rory Jennings, who you might be aware of, who does videos on football, again, Chelsea fan, probably the most high profile Chelsea fan in this space, he's done a couple of videos on Frank Lampard joining Everton, and he mentions that a couple of times about the unity that Lampard brought to Chelsea at that time. And that's what Everton need that more than any club at the moment, don't we? We need unity. We need a manager that's going to come in and have us believing in the same thing, having the players believing in the structure, and having the fans believing in the structure, and having the board thinking, do you know what, this fella's got a clue, and then going with it, trusting a process, having a process. And obviously there's still issues with the board, and again, I'm not by any sense of the imagination saying everything's fixed. I still think the board are incapable and inept. Absolutely useless at their jobs. I absolutely do, and that's a different argument for a different live stream. But the reality is, we've now got a manager who is young, up and coming, got a point to prove, but also tactically has shown that he can play the football that we as Evertonians want to see. He can get the best out of young players and bring young players through. We spoke a couple of years ago, there's an interview going around social media about Dele Alli where Frank Lampard was on, I think it was Sunday brunch or something like that. And he sat down when Dele Alli was really ripping it up at Tottenham before Frank Lampard was even a manager, and he sat down and he said, this kid is unbelievable. He's great, he's got all the talent in the world, he could be this, he could be that. And we all know Dele Alli's lost his way in recent years for whatever reason, but if we can get even a fraction of the Dele Alli that Frank Lampard was talking about in that interview at Everton, then we'll have a really good player on our hands, exactly like we've got a really good player on our hands with Damari Gray, because we're getting the best out of him, and I'm sure Frank Lampard will continue to get the best out of him as well. So, as I said, I'm not going to ramble too much on Frank Lampard because we spoke in depth about him yesterday in yesterday's stream, which I think was an hour and a half or something like that, and we also done the video on Frank Lampard. But I think having the Lampard appointment being made in this January transfer window, it's only right that we talk about it. And the reality of the situation is, I think it's a really, really positive move. It might go drastically wrong. Lampard mightn't have what it takes to stabilise a team and a club in the drastic situation that Everton are in. Because let's be honest, this isn't an easy club to stabilise. We're not looking at Everton going, yeah, all you've got to do is come in and do this, that and the other and everything will be fine. We're an absolute fucking mess at the moment, from top to bottom, from board to playing staff to management. We're a mess. So if Frank Lampard could come in and get us anywhere near stabilisation, if he can keep us safe this year, and let's say, as I said, we're fighting towards, some form of European competition next year, that would be a miracle. That'd be unbelievable because of how much of a mess this club is in. If he can get anywhere near what David Moyes was able to do over the years, which was create stabilisation and make Everton a side that we're never world beaters. We're never going to really win the league, but we'd always be between 5th and 8th every season. Consistency. As I said, structure, stabilisation, a plan in place. And we weren't happy at that time. Imagine what we'd give now if somebody said Cam or Bright or Lyle or Stewart or Mike or Wormy or anybody else, Jason or anybody watching in the live comments. Imagine, Adams, can you imagine if someone said, now Cam, I'll offer you here now, Everton finishing, between 5th and 8th for the next 4 seasons on the bounce, but you don't win, would you take it? I'd snap your hand off for it. Of course I'd snap your hand off for it. So yeah, as I said, I think it's a really positive sign, and it mightn't work, and I understand the pessimism around it, and I understand the fact that he's not very experienced, and he's certainly not particularly experienced in the situation that Everton are in. I get all of that, but there's an air of positivity much more around the football club now than there has been for a long, long time. Certainly than there was about the last managerial appointments. When Rafa Benitez was employed, I think the majority of Evertonians said, we'll get behind it, and looked for positives. And I find myself doing it on this live stream. When Benitez was announced, I found myself going, well, let's look for the positives. Let's talk about the positives of it. Let's get behind it. But really deep down in all of our minds, we knew that if this goes pear-shaped over a couple of games, if we lose a couple of games, if we go on a bad run, he ain't coming back from it. And I said it after the derby, the Merseyside derby, which was when? Early December, I said on this channel, on an instant match reaction, Rafa Benitez will never, ever come back from this. Never. And he never did, because he never was going to be able to. And I said, when he was announced, I didn't make many negative points because I wanted to keep it positive, but when he was announced, I said, if we lose to Liverpool at Goodison and they start singing his name, he will never come back from that. And I was right, and it wasn't just me saying it. I'm not saying, oh, look at me, I was right, I got it wrong, I got it right, because a lot of people were saying it because it was evident to see, it was obvious. It was obvious, and it should have been obvious to the owner as well. Benitez, whether you like him or you loathe him, Benitez, whether you agree with his appointments or not, he was always coming in with a pre-existing air of pessimism and worry, and this probably isn't going to go the way we want it to go. And it didn't end up going that way, and therefore it created this horrible, toxic environment that we're currently in. The positivity around Lampard is an amazing sign, because it means we can believe in a manager again. It means that Goodison on Saturday will likely be really, really positive. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I don't care what how you feel about the manager. It's about our football club now. Whether you like Lampard or not, whether you agree with his appointments or not, whether you're happy with it or not, we need to go and make Goodison Park an absolute bear pit for the remainder of the season. And I'd have said it if it was for Rafa Benitez as well, if he was still in charge. Forget who's on the sideline, forget who's playing on the pitch, forget who's in the dugout. This is our football club, and if we don't start getting behind this club, these players and this team, then they won't show any sort of reaction, and we'll be playing Championship football next season. So we've got to go and make Goodison an absolute bear pit in every single game, and same with away games, we've got to make them grounds an absolute bear pit as well. So, but overall, as I said, I do think that the Lampard appointment is massively positive, and ultimately has created this new wave of positivity that we all need to now get behind now and spiral behind and keep going. Let's not let this positivity wave fade away. Let's not get to a point where we go, I remember last week when we were all dead happy, well now we're all dead sad again. Let's keep this positivity going. Let's ride it, because the more we ride it, the better Everton will be. We can all still have our issues with the board and whoever else, not saying forget them, because they're massive issues and they need addressing, but for the moment, let's secure some safety and let's get behind the manager, because that's what he deserves, as any manager deserves. And I actually am confident that Frank Lampard could be Again, I'm not going to sit here and say we'll be a massive success. I'm not going to sit here and say we'll win us trophies or whatever. But I am confident that Lampard will be a manager that at the very least can stabilise Everton Football Club. And as I said, if you would say to me now, Cam, Lampard comes in and stabilises you, I would snap your hand off for it. I would. But as I said, we won't talk too much on Frank Lampard because we've spoken a lot about him in recent days. Everybody knows my feelings towards the appointment. Everybody knows my feelings towards Lampard as a manager. But ultimately, he did come in the January transfer window, so we are going to talk about him. We'll talk about the fullbacks in a second as well. Want to talk about Donny van der Beek, Dele Alli a little bit more, again, albeit we've spoken about them a lot in recent days as well. Billy Krellin, who's come in, who's an under-20s goalkeeper, who we signed in January, so we'll talk about him. By the way, don't forget to get your votes in on that poll. It is in the live comments if you're watching live now. 68 votes. Was this a successful window? Yes or no? It's simple. Including the Lampard appointment and all of the players that we signed, and the fact that we let Luca Dean go and we let a couple of young players go on loan. Was this a successful window? Let us know your thoughts in the poll. If you're watching live, get your thoughts in the live comments as well. We will be getting involved with them. If you're enjoying, please hit that like button. And as I said before, we are 5 subscribers away from 6,000 now, so if you could hit that subscribe button, it would mean a massive amount to me. Rich says the window is right, Cam, better than expected. He also says if only we still had Dean. Oh yeah, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Eugene says Stephen Hitchen latest as Everton and Farhad Mashiri consider Marcel Brand's replacement. Yeah, I read that Stephen Hitchen, I think, has left Tottenham today actually. Everton are looking to maybe approach him as being a director of football. I don't actually think he was a director of football at Tottenham, so interesting. Last time we tried to do this, we approached Steve Walsh to be a director of football when he had no previous experience of that, and we saw how badly that went. I'm not saying Stephen Hitchen would be like Steve Walsh, but I would like to hope that Farhad Mashiri is looking at the right man, and if Stephen Hitchen is the right man, then fair enough. If he isn't, then we shouldn't be going anywhere near him just because he's just left Tottenham, and they are deemed as a big club by some people who seem to think they're a big club. Even in all says Adamski, what's happening, mate? Dara Daniel says, alright, Cam, lad. Alright, Dara, what's happening? Perdy says, are you, Cam? Super pleased and optimistic for the rest of the season. Up the toffees, my friend. Is right. Philip says, hey, up, Blues, what's happening? Dark Art says, alright, Cam, lad. What's happening, my mate? Hi, Cam, evening, everybody, says Jason Zombiero. Says, hey, Cam, love the late scenes. A lot of people do. If you are loving the late scenes, by the way, then hit those likes. Get those likes up. And if you're loving them and you're thinking, why aren't there more people getting involved in these? Share the stream. Let's try and get as many people in as possible. It's 20 past 9, so I appreciate people will be settling down and will have had enough of Everton over the last few days. But if you could get as many people in here as possible, that'd be great. Hey up Blue says, Philip, what's happening? Dark Art says, alright, Cam, lad. Alright, my mate Jason. Hi, Cam. Evening, everybody. Zombiero says, love the late streams. Go ahead, Cam says, CGSC is right, my mate. Hope you're doing well. Jason says, Brand's never really bothered with January. Didn't he? Openly admitted he didn't like the January transfer window. Ed says, Dobbin signing his new contract was surely a direct result of Lampard coming in. Got to look to promote more players from our under-23s. Thanks for the videos lately, Cam. Thank you very much, my mate. Really appreciate it. I agree, by the way. I don't think Lewis Dobbin would have signed his Everton contract had maybe some of the other names that were thrown in the hat being given the job. I think if it was Dunk giving it, I think he would have. But a couple of other names that were thrown in the hat, a couple of other names that were rumoured and linked with the job, I think would have saw the Lewis Dobbin leaving the football club. But Frank Lampard, he'll know Lewis Dobbin's talent and ability, and as I said, Lewis Dobbin will understand that Frank Lampard is a manager who gives opportunities to young players, which is great for him. Everton set to sign Chelsea coach Ashley Cole. Yes, that has been in the news today. Ashley Cole is set to join Frank Lampard's backroom staff, and considering we usually wind up with worse players than we have already, I'm happy with the window, says Philip. Yeah, me too, mate, me too. As I said, I think, again, January transfer windows aren't typically very busy times for Everton. Certainly not January deadline days, so this is kind of a weird phenomenon to be sat here talking about this as an Evertonian. But yeah, there you go. That Kel says, why would you judge Rafa off the LFC game the most when them lot, who was one of the best in Europe, seems mad to use that as a tinner? It wasn't it wasn't the fact that we lost to Liverpool. That wasn't the problem with it. It wasn't the fact that we lost to Liverpool. Because again, as I've said, Liverpool, you're right. Liverpool are one of the best teams in Europe, and you never want to lose, and you never want to lose a derby. Obviously, you want to win every derby, and whenever we do lose a derby, I'm massively disappointed, and it ruins weeks. It's ruined months for me before losing derbies. But I get where you're coming from. It's not the fact that we lost to Liverpool, because under other managers, if we lost to Liverpool under Frank Lampard this season, and we were already safe and we were already in a guaranteed situation, we'd all be disappointed, we'd all be upset, but I think we'd all go, and I've said this before on streams over the years, they're a much better team than we are, and we couldn't really help that. And I said it this season when we lost to them, I said, we're a much better team than they're a much better team than we are. They're in a much better situation, and there's nothing we can do about it. It becomes almost like losing to Manchester City, where you just sort of say, yeah, what can we do? Although it's much more disappointing because it's Liverpool, what can we do? It wasn't that. It was them singing his name. It was the whole irony behind the situation. And it was the fact that we all said in the summer, if this was to happen, whether Liverpool are a great team or not, and whether Liverpool, have got better players than we have, so we shouldn't be surprised that they're beating us or not. There was just, it is what it is. Whether it's right or wrong, it was always going to be the case. He was never, ever, ever going to come back from that. He never was. And some people might disagree, but does anybody else see it like that, regardless of how good Liverpool are? And how the fact that, again, Everton losing to Liverpool isn't necessarily down to Rafael Benitez because of the difference in quality. The situation meant that he was never, ever going to be able to come back. So yeah, Nicky Disco says, don't know if I'm being a bit of Obi, but how do I join? It's not next to the subscribe button. I don't think it is when you're on a phone, mate, or if you're on an Apple phone or an iPad. I don't know why, but YouTube hasn't decided to integrate it, which is kind of weird. If you go on a computer or a laptop or anything like that, you'll see the join button next to the subscribe button, but also there's a link in our description. Top of the description, the first link is how to join the channel. So you should be able to do it via that as well. And that Kel says, gotcha, I get what you're saying, thanks, Cam. Cheers, mate. Yeah, as I said, it's not, oh my God, we lost to Liverpool, that's unachieved, that, we shouldn't be doing that, because I'll admit, I hate them, but they're a much better side than we are, they're in a much better position. It was that situation in itself that was more, that he was never going to come back from. And I think I said it in the summer as well. So, yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the signings that we brought in this January, and then we will get back into the live comments. So, let's look at the two fullbacks first, Vitaly Mykolenko and Nathan Patterson. Obviously, Mykolenko coming in as a direct replacement to Luka Dean. He actually signed before Luka Dean before Luka Dean was sold, but we all knew that the reason he was signing was because Luka Dean was being sold. Let's be honest. It was no, oh, maybe we're just signing him for the backup. We all knew that spending 20 million on a left back when we were in the situation financially that we were in was always going to be because Luka Dean was leaving the football club. And at that point, we knew there'd been a falling out. At that point, we knew that Luka Dean was probably looking to move on. So Mykolenko comes in. As I said, we've only seen him a couple of times. I thought he'd done okay on his debut against Hull. Thought he handled himself relatively well. Couple of mistakes positionally here and there, but generally, I thought he'd done okay. Norwich, he wasn't great. Pardon me. Norwich, he wasn't great. Let's have it right. He struggled. Positional-wise, he got caught a couple of times. He made a couple of quite significant mistakes. One back pass, which was absolutely awful. I don't know what he was playing at. And, he wasn't particularly great. And then we haven't really seen him since then, have we? To be honest, I think he had a little slight injury in the last game, and that's why he wasn't involved. But we're still waiting to see his Premier League debut at Goodison in an Everton shirt. And as I said, I think we've only seen him twice. One game he done well, the other game he maybe wasn't as good. But again, as I've said time and time again with Vitaly Mykolenko, I said it when he signed, and I'll say it again. This is a lad coming in from a league which is nowhere near as good as the Premier League coffee time. I don't believe it at all. No, I think it's nonsense. But that's just my opinion. I think Dunk really, really rates him, if I'm being honest with you. But what do I know? Again, as I said, coming in from a league that is nowhere near as good as the Premier League. In terms of the quality of the attackers in the Ukrainian league, in terms of the quality of the midfielders in the Ukrainian league. Defensively as well, we know Mykolenko loves to get forward, loves to create chances. He'll find that much more difficult in the Premier League than he would in the Ukrainian league, because the level of defenders is much higher here than it is over in Ukraine. But we all knew he was going to take a period of settling in. We all knew that it wasn't going to be a case of him playing his first game and us all going, oh my God, this kid's amazing. It wasn't like that with Seamus Coleman. Cast your minds back to when Seamus Coleman made his Everton debut all of them years ago. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. Fast forward 10 or 15 years and he's one of Everton's most best right backs we've ever had, and a long time savings, and at one point was the best right back in Europe, maybe even the world. When he had an Everton shirt on. So players take time to settle in, especially young lads coming over from leagues that just can't be compared to the Premier League in regards to quality. They simply can't, and Mykolenko is in that situation. He's a young kid, effectively. He's 22 years old. 22 years old, coming over, completely new country, completely new language, albeit I think he speaks a little bit of English, but certainly not a lot of English. 22 years old, so younger than me. If you'd say to me, Cam, right, we're going to pick you up, stick you in Ukraine, and you're going to go and do, live streams in Ukraine, I'd find it incredibly difficult because it's a new environment, it's a new country for them, it's a new way of living, it's a new society, it's a whole different life. And a massive expectation because of the Luca Dean situation that you've got to sit down and you've got to go and, ultimately be a success straight away, because you need to replace one of the best left backs in world football, which is the case with Luca Dean. You need to come in and replace one of the most creative players in our team. So that sort of pressure, adding to the fact that he's a young lad coming in from a different, an incompatible league, was never going to result in instant success. It was never going to result in, there you go, he's amazing straight away. We knew there was going to be a settling in period. We knew it was going to take time. And I'm seeing a lot of people who were sort of writing him off on Twitter. Oh, he's not good enough. He's this, he's that. He's not good enough. He's played 2 games. One of them he was fairly decent. Okay, the other one he wasn't great against Norwich. I admit that. But he's played 2 games in an Everton shirt. 2 games. How can anybody judge any player from 2 games? When, especially players that we knew were going to need time to settle in, that we knew were going to need a period of, understanding and learning the league and learning the country. It was always going to be the case, and I've got every faith that Vitaly Mykolenko will be a resounding success for Everton, and every faith that Vitaly Mykolenko will be a resounding success in the Premier League. It will just take time. It will absolutely just take time. And it will take time for him to settle in. It will take time for him to understand what he can do and what he can't do, i.e. those back passes like the one he played in the game against Norwich. Hopefully we never see him do it again, because he might have got away with that in the Ukrainian league, because the strikers mightn't have been as alive to that situation. They mightn't have been as aware of it. So he's thinking, I can do this because, the attacker isn't going to be aware of it. Whereas in the Premier League, no matter who you're playing, and we were playing the worst team in the league on that day, statistically, and the striker in the worst team in the league knew that, right, I'm gonna intercept this, and very nearly did, and it nearly caused the goal. You can't get away with that in the Premier League, and these are the lessons that he'll have to learn, and he'll make mistakes, and he'll continue to make mistakes over the next coming weeks, because that's how you learn. It's about not repeating them mistakes. This is the problem we've had with somebody like Mason Holgate over the years. No problem with Mason Holgate making mistakes when he's 18, 19, 20, trying to get into the team, trying to fight his way into the team. The problem is when he's making the same mistakes 4 or 5 years later and he hasn't learned. That's when you know, okay, this lad isn't going to be a success in the Premier League. This lad isn't going to work long term for Everton. I've got no problem with 22-year-old Vitaly Mykolenko, who has literally only just played twice for Everton in a new league, making mistakes, because that was always going to happen, and that's how he learns. It's about learning from them. So, I actually think it was a smart signing. Young, definitely good going forward. We've seen it before on an international level and on a European level. Again, defensively, he will learn what he can and what he can't get away with, what he can and what he can't do. And is he the perfect replacement for Luca Dean? No, because he's not a ready-made replacement for Luca Dean, and it's not an ideal situation. But it's not an ideal situation that Luca Dean left the football club and then we sacked the manager that he left because of a week later, is it? That none of this is an ideal situation. But I think if we have faith, belief and trust behind Vitaly Mykolenko, I think he will be a success. I really, really do. And then we go on to Nathan Patterson. Again, similar situation, not too big of a situation, because Nathan Patterson isn't having to learn the language. He's coming from a different country, but obviously it's a country within the United Kingdom. It's not a completely different country within Europe. Well, it is, but you know what I mean. you know, he's only travelling a couple of hours down the motorway as opposed to, you know, 5-6 hours on a plane to a completely different environment. I believe Glasgow is similar to Liverpool in the sense of the city, the people, and how the people are and how the city is towards various different things. Again, never been, but that's what I'm led to believe by people that have been or are from there. You know, there's a lot of comparables with Glasgow and Liverpool as a city. So Nathan Patterson won't have that. Settling into a new country, settling into a new, you know, sort of... He will have to settle into a new city, of course he will, but he'll find it easier than Vitaly Mykolenko. However, he will still need to settle into the Premier League. Again, this is a lad who didn't have much experience in the Scottish League. It's easy to look at Nathan Patterson and go, well, he was, he was good in the Scottish League. He was when he played, but he didn't play an awful lot in the Scottish League. He didn't play an awful lot for Rangers. So, you know, he will have to settle into the Premier League. He will have to learn defensively what he can and can't get away with. You know, what he can and can't do. You know, the mistakes that he can make and learn from them. Hopefully they don't lead to goals. But again, in terms of him as a player, really, really exciting going forward. You know, we saw his first minutes in an Everton shirt were for the under-23s against Tottenham last week, and he got an assist, really, really good assist, really clever flick, you know, to get the ball into the midfield, and then he received the ball back and played a wonderful cross into the box for Lewis Dobbin to score. So really, really impressive debut for Everton, I suppose you could call it, albeit not for the first team. And I really, really hope that he gets some first team experience in the very near future and we see exactly what he can bring. And maybe that'll be against Brentford on the weekend. We know Frank Lampard, as I've said, is previously as a manager, has given the young players, you know, that opportunity. He did it at Chelsea, he did it at Derby. He bred the young players through and he gave them that chance to prove themselves. He gave them that chance to go, here's your opportunity. Go and show us what you've got. Go and show us what you can give. And I know that he will give that opportunity to Nathan Patterson and Vitaly Mykolenko as well. Again, I'm really, really excited to see Nathan Patterson. I am. I really, really am. I think he's the young, dynamic, attacking style fullback that we need. And I also think he'll have a little bit of that snidness in him. You know, we're talking about a player here who plays for the national team that's captained by Andy Robinson. And I know none of us like Andy Robinson for obvious reasons, but he's the type of attitude that you want at your club. He's a snide player who isn't afraid to throw a tackle in, who isn't afraid to get in people's faces, who winds people up. That's what we need more of. And if Nathan Patterson can learn from his international captain in being that type of right back, a good defender, but really good going forward, but a good defender who can get under people's skin, make those sliding challenges, which we saw in that game against Tottenham in the under-23s, then I think we've got a potential top right back on our hands. And as I said, who better of a manager to work under than somebody like Frank Lampard, who in his short managerial career so far has been, you know, sort of known for giving those young players a chance and giving them an opportunity. So I actually think both fullbacks are really, really good, smart bits of business, and they actually seem better bits of business with the new manager. With Rafa Benitez, you could go, well, he doesn't like the fullbacks going forward, so what's the point in having Nathan Patterson and Mykolenko being forward-thinking fullbacks if Rafa Benitez doesn't want to allow them to do that? But with Frank Lampard, those signings all of a sudden seem a little bit more exciting, I think. Also, I think back to Mykolenko for a second, with the news or the rumours that Ashley Cole is due to join Everton's backroom staff. Vitaly Mykolenko will now have Ashley Cole and Leighton Baines, who are without doubt the two best left backs to ever play in the Premier League. Whichever way you see it, who's number one and who's number two, they are the two best left backs to ever play in the Premier League. He will now have them to learn from. And if Vitaly Mykolenko can't become a really good, effective Premier League left back with the two best left backs in the Premier League coaching him and guiding him, then I'm not too sure how he'll ever become that. So again, that's a real positive, and a positive for Nathan Patterson as well, because although he's not a left back, he'll still be able to learn a lot from Leighton Baines and Ashley Cole in terms of being a fullback, and he'll also be able to learn a lot from Seamus Coleman, who of course is the captain of the club and will be a good role model to somebody like a Nathan Patterson. So again, really smart bits of business, and I think they, albeit okay, we spent a considerable amount of money there, but we've needed a right back for a long time. We know we've needed a right back. We've spoken about needing a right back for a long time, and Although at the start of the window, we probably didn't think we needed a left-back, given the Luca Dean situation and the fact that we knew he was going to leave. We then needed a left-back, didn't we? So to go out and get a young full-back who's got a lot of potential and could turn out to be a really, really good acquisition for the money we pay for him and the fact that he's young and up-and-coming, I think it's a smart bit of business by the football club. But risky, of course it's risky, because you lose somebody who's already established, established international Premier League proven left back who we know can create chances, we know can, have involvement in goals, and we know is a okay defender. Wasn't great, but an okay defender, and you risk that for a young player who might never get to that level. It's a massive risk, but for the future, I think it would be a good decision. I do. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We will be getting in the live comments very, very shortly, so don't forget to get your thoughts in there. As I said, if you want to get involved with the poll, it's simple. Do you believe this was a good transfer window? Was this a successful window? Let us know your thoughts in that poll. It's a simple answer, yes or no. I can see that yes has got 90% of votes. I don't quite know how many votes that is, but it's out of 115 so far. So 90% of people out of 115 believe that it was a successful transfer window. Get your thoughts in that poll. It only takes a second to click it. Let's talk about Anwar El Ghazi then, who become Everton's third signing of the transfer window. A loan move that was surprising to a lot of us. Obviously, it come after Luca Dean's departure. There was some rumours stating that the discussions were a part of the Luca Dean deal. There was other rumours stating that the discussions weren't part of the Luca Dean deal, which was slightly confusing and a little bit frustrating. But anyway, El Ghazi come in on loan to what seemed like the not the wish of the manager, because Rafa Benitez seemingly didn't particularly want El Ghazi. I'm not saying he wasn't happy with him. I'm not saying he wasn't, I'm not saying he wasn't particularly pleased with him. But what I'm saying is, it didn't seem like a transfer that Rafa Benitez particularly steered the ship for. Marcel Brands obviously wasn't at the club at this time, so it couldn't have been him. Let's be honest, it was probably Kia Joraban, or whatever his name is, Jirab Shian, or Kia Sportage 4.2 litre engine sport version with black alloy wheels. It was probably him who was steering Farhad Mashiri to go and bring in somebody that he will gain financial benefit from if we do make that transfer happen. And he come in on loan, which was, again, frustrating to a lot of Evertonians, and even more frustrating when we got to deadline day and you began to realise that we were only allowed to bring in one more loan. Obviously, that ended up being Donny van der Beek, who we'll speak about in a second, but, when you're looking and thinking, right, well, we've already used one of our loans on a player that the ex-manager didn't really want and isn't even here now if he did want him. And it's just a little bit of a confusing situation, isn't it? I look at the El Ghazi situation and I'm a bit like, I still don't quite understand why or what the reasons for being. But let's look at it from a positive. He's 26. He's still at a good age. And ultimately, again, he's another player with a point to prove. This is something that we spoke heavily about with Donny van der Beek, Dele Alli yesterday, and Damari Gray in the summer. Players that are coming in with a bit of a chip on their shoulder and a bit of a point to prove. Now, I think that Anwar El Ghazi very much fits in that category as well. We're talking about a 26-year-old who plays for a mid-table Premier League side who have deemed him not important enough in their side so that they've loaned him out to another, okay, we're in a relegation battle at the moment, but let's be honest, another mid-table Premier League side. So he obviously wasn't very highly thought of at Aston Villa or by Steven Gerrard. And you have to ask yourself, how would that have made El Ghazi feel? He'll probably be sitting there now thinking, well, I want to prove Aston Villa wrong. I want to prove Steven Gerrard wrong. I want to be able to go in to Aston Villa at the end of the season. And, well, if he does return to Aston Villa at the end of the season, or whether or not Everton decide to buy him when he goes elsewhere, wherever he goes, he's going to be wanting to be saying, I want to get to the end of the season where teams are flocking for me. Teams are thinking, oh my God, let's go out and buy that. That El Ghazi, he's amazing, he's brilliant. Again, 26 years old, good age, getting to the point now where he's not young, so he's not sitting there thinking, well, yeah, I'll go out on loan, I'll do a bit, and I've got plenty of time left. And he's not at that age where he's thinking, I've made all my money in football, I'm mid-30s, I'm not really asked about what happens in the next coming months. He's at that age where he should, And I think he will be thinking, I need to get my head down here and I need to make a success of this football career. I need a team to look at me and go, you're a really, really good player. We want to take a punt on you. We want you to be a part of our squad. Technically, we know he's a good player. I think he scored 11 Premier League goals last season, albeit I think 6 of them were penalties. But that isn't necessarily a negative. I've seen some people, when we done the El Ghazi announcement video, when we spoke about the fact that, a lot of his goals were penalties, a lot of people were saying, we spoke about his goals, a lot of people were saying, yeah, Cam, but, a lot of them were penalties, so that, it doesn't count. Why is that a bad thing to have another good penalty taker in the squad? Is that now a bad thing, is it? Is it a bad thing to have a player that is being a consistently good penalty taker over the years at the club he's at? For me, that's not a bad thing. We need as many good penalty takers as we can, not only for if we get into a penalty shootout, but if we get a really, really important penalty in a really, really important game, and Anwar El Ghazi's on the pitch, he can take it, and the chances are he will probably score it. He's also technically a good player. We know he can score really good goals. He did at Goodison last season against Everton. Scored a really, really nice goal to secure Aston Villa the win on that day. So he's not by any stretch of the imagination an awful footballer, or a footballer that you look at and go, you're not going to offer anything to Everton. In terms of his quality, he can offer things to Everton. As Paul says, he's a tall, quick, 2-footed, skillful player who can play in 2 or 3 positions, score goals, don't see the problem. I agree with that. I get he's not the most inspiring transfer in the world, and I get that it's frustrating because there's a lot of confusion as to why it happened and who wanted it to happen. But regardless of that, he still technically is a player that can offer Everton something. He still technically is a player that can bring something to Everton that we don't necessarily have in the side. And again, as I said, he's another player with a chip on his shoulder. He's another player with a point to prove. And ultimately, he's an Everton player now. So let's get behind him. Let's support him. Let's back him. Let's show him that we will get behind him and we'll support him. And, I hope El Ghazi's a resounding success. I hope he scores 15 goals between now and the end of the season. And we're looking at him at the end of the season thinking, oh my God, you're amazing. We want to keep you on a permanent. And I'm sure he's sitting there thinking, that's the situation I need to get in. I need to be in a position where they're looking at me, whether it be Everton or Villa, at the end of the season thinking, what a player we've got here. Pokey says, I think the El Ghazi loan is good. He adds depth, and we saw with Aston Villa, he's an impact player. He comes on and off the bench and nicks a goal, and he'd be a good player, a good finisher. Well, he can kick a ball, and it's more than some of our current players can do. Says Star World Shorts. Just got in. What have I missed? Says Peter. We've spoken about Lampard, Patterson, Michaelenko. We're now talking about Ghazi. Just that's about it. Let's see the new ink. Cam says Hernandez. I think somebody else said it as well. Watch your new tat test roll. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it in this. I'll have to stand up and show you. The stream is a little bit behind, so I don't know what you'll be able to see and what you won't be able to see. But it's the Heath Ledger Joker. It says why so serious on it. If I stand back further here, you might be able to see it more. You mightn't because of the green screen. I don't know. If you can't, then I'll see it in a second and I'll try and get a better angle for you. But yeah, again, technically, I don't think he's too bad of a player. I think he's a good player. And, he ultimately will improve the squad. He ultimately will improve the team. And we've got to get behind him now. He's an Everton player. Let's get behind him. Let's back him. And we'll go from there. If it's a success, it's a success. If it isn't a success, he goes back at the end of the season. We shake hands and we say, cheers for your time. See you later, basically. Glenn says, wow, that's awesome. Thanks, mate. That was 5.5 hours in the chair of non-stop needlage. So it's very, very sore and I'm very, very tired. Quality that calm down, says Pokey. Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. But yeah, as I said, overall, just to sum up the El Ghazi stuff, I think let's try and be a little bit positive around it. I think he probably does know El Ghazi with him being at Ajax. So yeah, ultimately, we'll see what happens. I've had the cling film on it, Mozza. I've had to take it off because it's been 4 hours, so I had to wipe it and then put the balm stuff on it. So yeah. But again, as I said, the one of the things that we can definitely say about El Ghazi is he improves the squad. How many times have we looked at our bench? Paul says it also, Cam, look at our bench come Tuesday. It'll be 100% better than the one against Norwich. Exactly, mate. How many times have we looked at our bench in games and thought we haven't got an option here? There's nobody to come on. where's the attacking options, where's the wingers, where's the players that can come on and change a game. We'll now have a bench where you're looking at thinking, oh, you've got El Ghazi there, or you've got Townsend there, or you've got Van der Beek or Ali, depending on who starts and the formation that Lampard goes with. Options, players that can come on and impact and change a game. And I actually think the El Ghazi deal isn't as bad as maybe some people fear. We'll talk about Van der Beek and Dele Alli as a pair, because we spoke about them very much yesterday, and if you were around for yesterday's live stream, then you'll know a lot of my feelings on the pair. Van der Beek, I think, is a smart signing. Again, similar to El Ghazi, similar to, Damari Gray, young player. Obviously not really, I don't want to say not wanted at his parent club, but certainly not had as many opportunities as he would have liked at his parent club in Manchester United. Massive point to prove. Absolutely massive point to prove. Not in the FA Cup, we can't, says Hernandez. Well, yeah, we can't in the FA Cup because literally every single player is cup tied, but in the Premier League we can. As I said, again, with Van der Beek, massive point to prove, massive chip on his shoulder. He'd be wanting to look at Manchester United and think, I'm going to show you that I can be a successful midfielder in the Premier League, and I'm sure he's hoped he can do that. And again, good technical footballer. Will be able to hold the ball up. We'll be able to keep his cool on the ball. It's something that I think Frank Lampard will really, really want to see from him. Able to, not rush decisions. He can score goals. He can create chances. He can be a handful, up the top end of the pitch. But also he spoke in his interview about understanding the need to be a good defensive player as well. And understanding the need to do your defensive duties, which is really, really important, because that's exactly what we need at the moment. And as I said yesterday, and as I said in the announcement video for Van der Beek, I actually think it's a really, really smart bit of business from Everton. Obviously, there's no buying clause on the end of it, but if he does really well, and he goes back to Man United in the summer, and Everton really want to sign him, I think there's a big possibility we could sign him, even without there being a buying clause on the deal. So, again, really, really smart bit of business. I think he'll have a chip on his shoulder. He'll want to do well. He'll want to impress. He spoke really, really positively about Everton and his relationship with Everton, which was a surprise. So hopefully he can get his head down and he can see this as an opportunity to show himself, show his true colour, show his true ability, what he can do, what the ability he can provide in the Premier League, and I think he will. Same sort of with Dele Alli. Again, at that age now, 25, 26, he's done his interview with the football club today, really positive interview. He's had his pictures taken, he's spoken about how he's grateful for this opportunity, he wants to work under Frank Lampard. Again, as I said, yesterday with Dele Alli's situation, a midfielder who ultimately is at an age where he really, really needs to kickstart his career again. We're talking about a young lad who 4 or 5 years ago, Everton would have never have been linked with Dele Alli. Because if Everton were linked with Dele Alli, it would have been because Everton were much better than Tottenham, winning league titles, and it'd have cost us a ridiculous amount of money. To say that he's now come in on what effectively is a glorified free transfer, and I say that because we literally can't spend any money on him until at least the summer, because he's got to play 20 games and there's only 18 league games left and he's cup tied. So we literally won't spend a penny on Dele Alli until at least the summer. To say that we've managed to get a player who, okay, yes, has lost his way. Okay, yes, is, again, you could say, needs to get his head down and needs to work hard, and I agree, and I appreciate that, and I 100% understand that he does. He obviously needs to improve. He needs to show, a different side to himself. He needs to have that winning mentality, and he needs to have the determination and the ambition to work his arse off, to train really hard, and to want to be the best. It's ultimately on Dele Alli, in the same way as it's on Donny van der Beek. These two players ultimately need to prove that they want to reignite their career, and they want to, prove a point to whoever that may be. But I think if Frank Lampard can get, even 40% from Dele Alli as to what he was showing and achieving all those years back, then we've got some player on our hands. We really, really have. And what a success he could be for Everton. And I think Dele Alli will bring it. Because as I said yesterday, sometimes players just get stale at clubs. Sometimes players just need a fresh start. Sometimes players just need an opportunity to, to reignite their career, a new beginning, a new chance, a new team, and new surroundings, a bit of a fresh beginning, as I said. And I think Dele Alli, I hope, and I actually do believe that Dele Alli will be one player that benefits from that. Now, obviously, we won't see Dele Alli or Donny van der Beek on Saturday because they're both cup tied, but hopefully when we see them in the two of the biggest games, if not arguably the two biggest games of the season, against Leeds and Newcastle, hopefully that's when we start to see their quality, and that's when we start to see that, that desire to prove that point, and to ignite that chip on their shoulder, which I would like to hope both players have, because these are the types of players that should have a chip on their shoulder. And if they haven't, then there's questions to be asked about their attitude and their willingness to be a success in football. Also, the impact that Frank Lampard has on these two players, both midfielders who want to be a success in the Premier League. I'm pressing buttons here and it's doing all sorts of madness. Just messing with my keyboard. Players that ultimately will want to be a success in the Premier League, especially Dele Alli. He'll have grown up watching Frank Lampard. He'll have grown up watching that England team thinking, I want to be like Frank Lampard. I want to be as successful as he is. I want to do what he's doing. Pardon me. So what better manager to work under than Frank Lampard for Dele Alli? So again, I think they're two really, really positive deals. The way the Dele Alli deal structured is amazing, as I said yesterday. And if you're wondering why we're not talking too much about Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek, that's because we spent literally an hour and a half talking about them yesterday. So if you haven't checked that live stream out, please do so after this one. This was more about everything else that went on in January. But as I said, if Everton end up paying 40 million for Dele Alli, I will be absolutely over the moon, because that means he's been a success. And yeah. Again, I think they're two really, really smart bits of business, two really, really smart signings, and I'm really, really happy with them. Then obviously we brought in young Billy Crellin, under-20s goalkeeper. Will join up with the under-23s. Really highly rated. I believe he was an Evertonian from when he was young. Obviously at Fleetwood. I think he'd been on loan somewhere else previous to that as well, but I can't remember where it was. Yeah, again, I haven't particularly got an awful lot to say, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not going to be able to sit here and, say he's amazing, or he's this, or he's that, he's the other. I don't know anything about him. But what I do know is there's another young goalkeeper, another player that will ultimately have a point to prove, albeit still very, very young and only at the start of his career. And again, he's not going into the first team, he's going into the under-23s, isn't he? So it's not like we need to sit here and have a big conversation about the first team games he's going to have, or the impact he's had. He might get involved in the first team squad every now and then, dependent on the situation with injuries and fitness and stuff. But let's be honest, he's not going to be talked about much in the next couple of years, that's for sure. It does beg the question as to where does Harry Tyler's position at the club fit in. But maybe the club is seeing Harry Tyler as somebody now that needs to make that step up. That next year will be a formal part of the first team squad. Obviously Andy Lonergan's contract's only till the end of the season, and I highly doubt he will be staying at the football club. So maybe Harry Tyler will take that position, which he probably will, because the only reason Andy Lonergan was brought in was because Harry Tyler got an injury and therefore wasn't available for a number of months. So if he actually wasn't injured, I don't think Andy Lonergan would be an Everton player. So again, don't know much about Billy Crellin, but I assume he will take Harry Tyler's position in the under-23s when obviously Tyler's promoted to the first team. So there you go, there all the ins: Mikalenko, Patterson, El Ghazi, Van der Beek, Ali and Billy Crellin. We are going to talk about the outs as well. Only really Luca Dean, isn't he? We'll talk about the loans for a couple of minutes, but there's only really Luca Dean. But we'll do that in a second. Let's get into the live comments before we do that. As I said, don't forget to leave your vote on the poll in the live comments. It's a simple one. Do you think this window was a success? Yes or no? We've had 145 votes so far, with 90% of people saying yes, so a lot of positivity surrounding this window. As I said, don't forget this involves Frank Lampard becoming the Everton manager, which is a big key talking point in that. So yeah, don't forget to get your thoughts in on that poll in the live comments if you haven't already. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. As I said before, we are literally less than 6 subscribers, so 5 subscribers at the start of this stream from hitting that 6,000 subscriber mark. So if we could hit that subscribe button, if we knew, that'd be absolutely amazing and would mean a massive amount to me. We'll be live on Friday with the game preview to the Brentford game. I'm not too sure if we're going to be live tomorrow. I'm going to have to figure some stuff out because I've actually got a funeral on Friday, so I don't know if I'm going to have to work late tomorrow. But if we can go live tomorrow, we will. But yeah, please do subscribe. Please do hit that like button as well. That would mean a great deal to me. Apparently, there's some rumours about Dom being injured for the game against Brentford. If he is, let's hope it's not unserious, and let's hope that he will be back for the upcoming Premier League games, because we really, really need him back for them. Where are we in the live comments then? Where are we? Jason says, and we have Tossin who's going to sit on the bench and get paid. You would have thought somebody would have took him. He doesn't want to go, does he? There was teams interested in Cenk Tosin, but he doesn't want to leave because Everton was silly enough to pay him stupid money that he'll never, ever, ever get anywhere near that much for the rest of his career. So he's going to sit on it for the next couple of months and earn as much as he can and then go for a free in the summer. Again, some would say, oh, he's a mercenary, he's not ours, this, that, and the other. We should never have given him the contract he was given. All he's doing is earning that money, and well, not all he's doing is collecting that money, which we can't really blame him for, because most people would do that. DGST says, anyone still missing Dean after the bottle incident didn't go near him? Listen, again, I'm not going to condone throwing bottles because I don't agree with it, but you know, Luca Dean. We'll talk about Luca Dean in a second, actually, because I do think it's an interesting talking point. Tossin turned down 15 clubs, mate. He turned down a lot. Purdy says, I think Dele Alli is going to have a resurgence under Lamps. They was great this year. Hopefully, Gareth says, if Mikalenko can't improve under the two best left backs in Prem history, then he never will. What a chance for the kid, yeah. I'll give the window an 8 out of 10, says Sumbierio. Ian says, even in Cam and fellow Blues. What a week, Franklin, Donny and Dele. Not forgetting Vitali, Patterson and El Ghazi. Cracking window for me. Do you think Branthwaite will play Saturday? Maybe. Given it's a cup game, maybe. If my gut says no, because I think Lampard will want to go with the strongest team possible to make an impression and ultimately to win the game. But you know, who knows? With it being a cup game, you never know, do you? You never know. I suppose it depends who's impressed most in Saining and who's fittest in Saining. Frank Lampard's first press conference is tomorrow. Says Eugene, it is. Gareth says Frank Lampard got an A+ in Latin, so at least he knows what nil satisfies optimum means. I didn't know that. That's actually a really, really good point. There you go. El Ghazi is going to score the winner in the derby at Anfield. Mark my words. I hope so, mate. I hope so. They're already sub, says TGSC. No worries, my mate. Thank you anyway. Dave says, as much as I'm happy with the win, with the signings we did make, I still think we've been shouting for a CDM. I agree. I think a number 6, and a number 6 and another centre back, I think were areas we should have really addressed this window, and we didn't address them, and that is disappointing. But maybe that's because we didn't get a manager till deadline day, and ultimately, maybe there just wasn't the available players. Maybe the players that Lampard wanted to bring in those areas weren't available, and instead of buying somebody that he didn't want and didn't think was going to work for the sake of it, we actually bought a couple of players that he did want and did think that were going to work, but just in different areas, and then we'll readdress those positions in the summer. But I actually agree. I think we should have been going for a number 6 and a centre-back. And Jason says, to me, it's like we're going into a new era. Dele and Donny can't play in the cup, but the others were wanting to impress Frank, yeah? Every one of those players will be wanting to impress Frank Lampard, and so they should, because that's exactly what they should be doing. I've just sub-said Star Wars Shorts. Thank you, my mate. Really appreciate it. If not, he might chuck Dobbin in the deep end. Maybe we'll chuck Dobbin in with Don being injured. It'll be interesting to see who he does play. I imagine he plays Rondon, and we might play Rondon because Rondon might train brilliantly and scored an hat-trick midweek. So don't be surprised if Rondon does play. But I would assume that Lewis Dobbin will get some game time, which will be interesting. Let's not forget we're playing a Premier League opposition as well, so this isn't going to be by any stretch of the imagination an easy game for Everton. It won't. James says, who would you start in defence? Well, we're doing our preview on Friday, mate, so join us for that, and we'll be doing our predicted starting 11 in terms of who will start in defence, midfield and attack. Anyway, let's talk about the outgoings then, just briefly before we end the stream. We will talk about Luca Dean. I know I appreciate I did a video on Luca Dean when he left the football club, and again we've done multiple videos on Luca Dean and streams when it was becoming apparent that he was going to leave the football club, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. He obviously was the big exit this window. Obviously we had Ellis Sims go out on loan to Hearts and Lewis Warrington go out on loan to Samia. Just briefly, I actually think they're two really, really good loans. Again, I think Ellis Sims has already impressed in the couple of games he's played for Hearts so far, and I think it's a much more competitive league than what League One is. Obviously, playing over in the SPL, he'll get a lot of experience from it, he'll gain a lot of experience from it, and if he's ever going to be an Everton player consistently in the future, then a loan to a team like Hearts is probably a sensible deal and a sensible transfer to make for Ellis Sims. And again, same with Lewis Warrington, really, really impressing in the under-23s. I think he's got to that point now where a lot of players get to, where he's not learning anything from being in the under-23s, and he's not really benefiting from being there either. They're benefiting from having him, but he isn't really benefiting from being there. So again, good loan, Samir, obviously local team, so he doesn't have to travel very far, doesn't have to move home, doesn't have to relocate or anything like that. And a side that ultimately, again, are in the lower leagues, and it'll be some good experience, hard games of football, loads of games of football, big expectations over there as well. So, again, I actually think that's a really, really smart move for Lewis Warrington and for Everton to make as well. So happy with both of those loan deals, no problem with them whatsoever. Sorry for being late, wishing everyone the best, Delamere. No need to worry, my mate, no need to worry. Let's talk about Luca Dean then, before we end the stream. Obviously, Luca Dean was the one big departure this window. One that for a long time we didn't see coming and would never have seen coming, but then when we actually started to learn the situation and what was going on, it became quite apparent quite quickly that that Luca Dean was going to leave Everton Football Club, and it was just a matter of when, really, not if. He did eventually leave. He went to Aston Villa, obviously for a fee of what was reported to be £25 million. Massive contract of Villa as well, but that's none of our problem because that's a Villa situation, not an Everton situation. Look, I'd be lying if I was to say I wasn't disappointed. I think the Luca Dean situation really highlights the dreadful situation that this football club are in. I don't want to say we're in, because I understand there's a lot more positivity around the club at the moment, and I understand that the appointment of Frank Lampard is creating that positivity, and that's great, and I want to run with that. As I said before, we can't let that positivity dwindle out. We need to run with it for as long as possible. You have hit 6k, says Star Wars. Amazing. Thank you all so much. If we have hit 6k, I can't see, but if we have, thank you all so much. That's absolutely amazing. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, it blows my mind. The support is unbelievable. So thank you all so much for that. Keep subscribing if you're new. Don't have to stop at 6k. We are aiming to hit 10k at some point in the near future. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be amazing. But anyway, thank you all so much for 6k. That is amazing. It really, really is. As I said, it highlights the dreadful situation that this football club are in, because it's the same board, it's the same people making the decisions, albeit there's more positivity that we need to really utilise now, but we're talking about the Dean situation, so let's make an exception. Because we ultimately sold one of our best players, one of our most creative players, a real fan favourite. Whatever you think of Luca Dean, whether you think he was good enough or whether you don't think he was good enough, he was a real fan favourite, and we sold him on the basis that the manager in charge at the time had fell out with him and wasn't a massive fan of him, and then we ultimately, a week later, or whatever it was, 5 days later, sacked the manager that, sort of, I don't want to say created that situation, because I don't want to put it all on Rafael Benitez, but certainly had a part to play in that situation. We sacked the manager who ultimately wanted to get rid of the player that we just sold, which was a massive decision by the club. So again, it highlighted the weird and really, really poor mismanagement of this football club, and really, really poor, and lack of ability of the decision makers at the top of the club to make any real decent decisions. However, I said it at the time and I'll say it again, financially, the deal worked for Everton to get 25 million for the 28, 29-year-old who was, some would argue, on a downwards trajectory. Not me. I would say he still had at least a couple of decent seasons in him, and he's gone to Villa, and by all sense of the imagination, he's looked okay, for his first couple of games. But given his age, defensively he hasn't been great in his time at Everton. And again, this season, no assists. He's got more assists at Goodison against Everton than he has for Everton, and he's only played at Goodison once since he's left. So no assists this season. Don't think he got any goals last season, albeit he got a lot of assists. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and shadow it. Luca Dean was a fantastic player, and ultimately we've lost our three most creative players since last season. This time last season, our three most creative players are now gone. We've had Dean leave, we've had James leave, and we've had somebody else leave that I can't quite remember the name of. So that is always going to have a negative impact on the side, and it's always going to, again, create struggle, especially when you don't really replace them. Have we replaced them now with Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek? Maybe, hopefully, but certainly prior to Monday, we hadn't replaced that creativity, and losing Luca Dean and replacing him with, as I said before, a risk in Vitaly Mykolenko, albeit I think a risk that will end up being a positive in the future, but a risk as of now and not a ready-made replacement, was a baffling decision, in my opinion. I get there was a situation. I get that the manager wanted them out. But again, then to sack the manager that wanted them out a week later, again, shows the mismanagement of this football club. Now, albeit financially, I understand that it was a positive, a positive deal. As I said, £25 million for a 28-year-old. We would never have got that next year. We would never have got that, in 2 years' time. And if Everton were paying £25 million for the 28-year-old, we'd all be sitting here going off our tits about why we were doing that. I know a lot of people don't see it that way. They say, don't care how much money it was a bad deal. That's fair enough. The way I see it is, for whatever reason, he didn't want to be here. And if he can get £25 million for a player who doesn't want to be here, then sometimes it is what it is, and you move on. It's just such a disappointing situation that it got to that, and that the reason he didn't want to be here was for a manager that ultimately is now gone. I'd be interested to hear what Luca Dean would say now that Rafa Benitez isn't the manager and Frank Lampard's in. Would he have wanted to stay under Lampard? I'm sure he'll say, I'm not bothered, I'm at Villa now and I love Steven Gerrard, but would he have, if Luca Dean was still in Everton playing now, it would be a much different situation, I feel. But he left. We had to get on with it. We move on with our lives. And again, as I said, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've said it about a number of Everton players and Everton managers since I've been doing this channel. As soon as you leave Everton Football Club, as soon as you walk out that door and you officially are not an Everton player anymore, I couldn't really give a shit. And that's not because I don't like Luca Dean, or I didn't like Carlo Ancelotti, or I didn't like previous ex-players and managers that have left. But as soon as you leave Everton Football Club, then I don't really care what happens. Good luck with your future, all of that sort of stuff, but I'm not really arsed because my focus is on Everton. And if you're no longer a part of Everton, then I'm not focused on you. And that's the sort of attitude I have towards Luca Dean. It was the attitude I had towards Carlo Ancelotti. It was the attitude that I had towards any other Everton player that leaves. It was disappointing, and again, I think it shows the mismanagement of this football club. But it's done now, and we ultimately have to get on with it. But what a surprise it was. Who'd have thought we'd be sat here at the end of the January transfer window without Luca Dean? It's a mad one. Moz has donated £2 to the live stream. It says 6k, dude. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the donation, and thank you very much for 6,000 subscribers as well. That is absolutely unbelievable. I still can't quite believe we've hit that number, so thank you all so much. It really, really does mean a massive amount to me. Hi, says Kieran. Hi, mate. Rafa didn't give a toss. He was due his pension. Frank's hungry. Interesting point. We're on 89 likes, by the way. Could we get it up to 100 before we leave? Before we end the stream, sorry, which will be in a moment. And don't forget to get your votes in on that poll. We're going to end the poll in about a minute or so. So get your votes in and we'll have a look at them. Ananda says, we're dropping a ton of deadwood this summer with contracts expiring. We'll get better in the summer. Tokes and Delph and the fella I can't remember are all out of contract. All of those are some of our highest earners. Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. So as I said, before we even come to pay a penny for Dele Alli, we'll have recouped a lot of money from, not only players that we might sell in the summer, but also those players that are ultimately out of contract and will leave Everton either way. So, yeah, spot on. Can't wait for a page this summer. Says USA. I think he's talking about players leaving the football club out of contract. I don't think he's actually referring to a real-life page. But there you go. When's the page coming back on Amazon? Says Kayla. I don't know, Kayla. We are talking about an Everton summer page. I don't think we're talking about the series page, but maybe he is, maybe we are. USA Matt says right after the Arsenal game in May. Harold says right on Cam. Dunk was the exception, says Peter. Rumble that stream, says Bright. Don't know what that means, but there you go. Frank and Steve Clark won't let this board walk all over them. Man still talks about the likes of Barry, says Delamere, because he says that father-in-law is devastated over Dean and still stunned over how Benitez got the job and the free fall the club was in. Yeah, I think a lot of people are, mate. I think a lot of people are, and as I said, it shows the gross mismanagement of this football club. But let's just hope they've got it right with Frank Lampard. Let's hope they've got it right. Billy says great team, Cam, feeling optimistic. All the fans are coming together. You can really feel a change up the Toffees. I agree. Sombiero says, Cam, how much would you want for DCL if he leaves? Upwards of 70 million, if I'm being honest with you. Upwards of, and you might say he's not worth that. He's worth that to us because we've got to go and find a replacement, and name me a replacement that is better than Dominic Calvert-Lewin that we could get for under 70 million. I challenge you. Think Ali will be given the number 10 shirt. I don't know. Wish he have a future at Everton, says Pokey. No, I doubt it. And until the stadium is ready, we haven't got the income for FFP, and I've been screwed in by. Spot on. Let's end this poll then. Three likes away from 100. Could we finish it? Could we get to 100 likes before the end of the season? That'd be amazing. Who is your personal favourite player we signed in January? I'm most excited about Dele Alli, if I'm being honest with you. I am. I think they're all good bits of business. I don't think there's any one, even the Ghazi one, I don't think there's any one where I look at and go, that's an awful bit of business. I'm probably because most of them, even the likes of Ghazi, we mightn't be sure about. Financially, it's a low risk, so it doesn't really matter much. But I'd say it was Dele Alli. There you go. The results are in. Was this a successful window? Out of 177 votes, 90% of people believed it was. So really strong views there. I would agree. I actually think, given the new manager, given some of the players we've brought in, Pokey accidentally pressed no, so it'd been even a higher percentage. I actually think that it's been a good window. I do. I really do. Pokey said, Phil says, I'm an Arsenal fan and I'd be happy if we got about 70. Good deal all round at that price. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be happy because I don't want us to sell him, but yeah, there you go. Some Blues would happily sell him for £70 million. Sorry, Cam, I watched the last episode of the Pro then. No need to apologise, Kevin. I hope it was brilliant. I haven't watched any of it yet, but I'm looking to watch it because I believe it's very, very good. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there then. If you have enjoyed this live stream, please hit that like button. A massive thanks to everybody in the live comments for getting involved and watching live. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button. Sorry we couldn't get involved with all of the live comments, but I really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, get your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can as well. Let us know what you think. Was it a positive transfer window, or do you believe it was a negative? Was it a success? Was it not a success? Sombiero asks, what about Richarlison? How much? No amount of money would make me part ways with Richarlison happily. No amount of money. I love that fella too much. It was your worst Everton signing back in the day. There's been too many, Eugene. I'm happy we did good managing backroom staff. Yeah, have a good night, mate, says Star Wars. Cheers, thanks, Cam. Congrats on 6 cases, Pokey. Cheers, thank you very much. See you about the toffees and see you on Friday, says Eugene. Yeah, as I said, we will be back with the game preview to the Brentford game on Friday. We might be live tomorrow. I'm not too sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. I've got a couple of bits on, but if I can get a live stream out there, then we will get a live stream out there. And if anything breaks in terms of news, obviously, then we will be doing a live stream or a video anyway. So we'll wait and see. Cheers, Cam. Thanks to everyone. Have a good night, says USA Toffee. Cheers, Cam, says Kev. Semi says, thanks, Cam. Take care, everyone. Cheers, mate. And Ander says, all the best, Cam. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, my mate. Is right. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Massive thank you for 6,000 subscribers. Well, that means a massive amount to me. I really do appreciate it. Peter says, cheers for the team, Cam. Brilliant content, 6k willing. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all soon on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.